When and if we establish a need for it, I would say yes, and I think then we would actually be much more likely to find the funding for it, as opposed to looking for funding when there's no delineated use for it. Nothing in the trans systems studies define what we would be bringing in, what we would be shipping out. Once those things are defined, I think we can move forward.
Thank you, Susan. And now, Richard Martin.
Well, as far as the Redwood dock is concerned, I'm probably the only one up here that actually worked on that dock. Made a living, you know, on this peninsula, right over here. And I really think that if we're going to develop it, we're going to have to probably readdress this whole issue in the future. Right now, the financing, of course, isn't available for the full project, but I think that we need to have something there. First of all, would be the cleanup. That's going to be an issue. That's a creosote-filled area that, like, it was dilapidated when I worked on it, you know, years ago. And I started working out on the peninsula in the 70s. And so I think that the Harbor Commission is actually going to be on the spotlight again, when I think this is probably going to be a subject that's going to be revisited. It might not be in the same form as it was approved here last time. I'm sure that it'll probably be scaled back just because of the economy. But of course, I want to see us do something there. I want jobs. And again, you know, I'm going to do whatever to step forward to try to get our economy moving here.
Thank you, Richard. Dan.
I would probably be more closely aligned with Richard on the issue of the Redwood dock. I believe that it needs to be rebuilt. I believe that it can be a job producer, not only in the cleanup and construction phases, but can be a job producer for good, well-paying jobs, longshoreman jobs and others over the long haul. And I believe that the district must plan for the future and look to a prosperous economy in the future. Having that Redwood dock as a centerpiece.
Thank you.
I'd like to rebut.
Please.
First of all, on the cleanup, you know, when the district took the property from the previous owner, the district was given a sizable amount of money because of the liability with regards to the dock and the cleanup of that dock, which it's chosen to not spend on cleaning it up. And so that's something we need to address really directly. The other thing with regards to jobs, you need jobs, longshoreman jobs, assume something's going to be shipping. We have private docks on Humboldt Bay, many of whom don't feel like they want the competition. I don't blame them. With regards to what I've heard them say is, we don't have things coming over our docks. Why do you want us to support building another dock that would compete with us? And I can sympathize with that, and I think it's a legitimate concern.
And I'm going to go right down the line here, and I'd like you to identify yourself and your organization, and then create your question. And I'll figure out what order it is while you're doing that.
All right. I'm Ryan Burns. I'm with the North Coast Journal. And my question has to do with the financial state of the district. There were some pretty drastic cuts made this past year. Some of you mentioned going to the legislature and asking for more money. Of course, we all know that the state is dead broke. So barring more funding from the state, how do you propose to make the district financially stable?
Okay, the order for this will be Susan, Dan, Mike, and Richard. So starting off with Susan on how you're going to finance the district.
Thank you. I don't have a degree in banking, but okay, for starters, as I mentioned earlier, Woodley Island Marina is running in the red. It is also not full, so let's fill it up. Fields Landing also has more restrictive covenants on it. some fishermen are not going to be using it in the future if those continue. Let's let them, they don't need to be there. As far as the harbor portion of it, fortunately, we're nearing the end of paying off the debt. Let's not incur more debt by building a dock for which we have no customers. Let's bring in some work immediately. We do have properties that are ready for customers. Let's invite them. Let's simplify the permitting process. One quick example, there are companies in the U.S. that are building boats. There are people here who buy boats. If we get the short sea shipping going, we could even ship them out on the short sea shipping system after having built them here. We can lease the property and have workers here employed. We need to get creative, diversify the economy. It can't be just shipping. Okay. That's all I can come up with right now.
Great, thank you very much. And now, Dan.
Well, I'm not going to follow up on Kaye's suggestion that we dump the current governor. We haven't had a lot of luck with governors over the last number of years. First of all, I didn't suggest going to the legislature for money. I know what the state economy is. What I did was suggest that we go to the legislature for possible funding sources that we can generate. And that may deal with tidelands issues, that could deal with a tax surcharge that would be put to the voters, similar to what many of the fire and special districts have done over the last number of years. But again, we'd need legislative authorization to do that. I think you have to go through the entire budget with a fine-tooth comb and figure out those areas that are revenue generating as compared to those areas that are revenue drains. And I don't have a silver bullet other than trying to improve the overall economy so that the health of the district improves as well.
Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, I mean, there's two parts of this really people are talking about. Is it the budget of the district or is it our economy? I mean, they are somewhat related in terms of right now most of our revenues come from taxes, from property taxes, tideland leases, and from the slip rentals that we have out here. The district was created over 30 years ago to address a declining shipping industry in Humboldt Bay related to the declining timber. Jobs and shipping have declined virtually every year since then. And with the demise of the pulp mill, we have gone off a cliff, literally. And we are still moving forward as if it hasn't happened. And people have these strategies, and we're still clinging to strategies as if that hasn't happened. We had to cut over $300,000 from our budget this year just to have a budget that will let us survive for 4 more years. Basically, the way we had our budget was 2 years to bankruptcy, and we've cut it back enough that we actually have added another few years. We're going to have more severe cuts. None of the answers to economic development that we're talking about in this room today are fast enough to save the district if we don't make major changes to how we operate. And that's the reality of what we're facing. And yeah, there's no silver bullet, and it's going to be tough. And that's the way that it is. And I apologize for not being the rainbows and unicorns candidate on this particular issue, but you know, it's the reality that we face on the district. So,
you know, Mike probably doesn't like to revisit this because this has been a pretty big issue, you know, this last year with the district. And you know, Mike's right. You know, most of the money is garnered through property taxes. And the tideland leases is one thing I think that we should look back into, except for a lot of those are long-term contracts, and I don't know if they can generate any more revenue right now. And the slips is kind of a cold thing, you know. It's not a popular thing. I think that if we look for Woodley Island to expand, and Susan did touch on that, if we just filled Woodley Island to its capacity and had people that were actually paying, that would help out some of the issue. As far as quick revenue generating ideas, you know, I will agree with Mike, you know, it's going to be down the road a ways. And so they've already faced this budget once and they cut, what, $250 out. Yeah. $250,000.
More than that,
Yeah.
actually. That was just in review.
And that was some pretty heartless cuts in themselves. And so, yeah, the Harbor District is in dire financial being right now.